The Barbie movie has turned into a fascinating cultural moment for everyone, but for me, the most surprising part has been just how many Christians I've talked to who said that they liked it a lot. Now, I don't care about the political left versus right aspect of the movie all that much. I do care about the truth versus lies aspect of it, because lies are what destroy people and communities, and this movie lies a lot, which is why I'm a little concerned to see so many Christians are sort of nodding their head in agreement with some of the most dishonest and destructive things that this movie has to say. I don't have time to break down every lie that this movie tells. You can check out the almost 3-hour-long scene-by-scene breakdown that the little platoon does if you want something like that. Instead, I'm gonna focus on 3 of the most important lies, and one in particular that I haven't really heard anyone else talking about yet, that might just be its most damaging one. Plus, as a bonus, we'll take a quick look at what we can do about it. So let's dive in. First up, let's check out this scene where the Kens have decided to do patriarchy and they've got their Mojo Dojo Casa houses going. Right, the Kens are doing all the jobs in town and the Barbies just lounge around at home and occasionally bring their Ken a beer every once in a while. And everybody's happy. Everyone loves this. It is interesting. The movie never bothers to explain why this whole patriarchy thing is inherently so evil and bad, even though the Kens are treating the Barbies ridiculously well. I mean, they're giving them everything they've got, and those Barbies are just soaking it up. But we'll come back to that later, because here's where we get our first really interesting lie. Main Barbie discovers that the rest of the Barbies are only happy because they were brainwashed. Now this is interesting, because this lie has to be in this movie because of something that's happening in our real world that contradicts the movie's main message. In order for the movie's message to work, it has to explain away how studies show that the happiest people are actually conservative Christian women. You know, those poor subjugated housewives whose husbands work hard for them to bring home the bacon so that they can stay in and be homemakers and mothers and, you know, occasionally bring their Ken a beer every once in a while. Yeah, those are the happiest people. That data is a problem if you're a feminist like Greta Gerwig and the main message of your movie is that women are miserable because they're being subjugated by men like that. So the movie has to say that no, those women over there are only happier than us because they were brainwashed to be. But that one cuts both ways, love, because how do you know that you aren't miserable because you were brainwashed to be miserable by feminists? Now you might think, okay, but what's the big deal? So what if it's a lie? It's not hurting anybody, right? Well, I wouldn't be so sure, because that leads us right to the next lie that I want us to take a look at. The way this movie portrays men. A lot of the ways that this movie depicts men just straight up are not real. Like, for example, Little Platoon makes an excellent point that no, men are not, as Greta Gerwig portrays them, these lustful sex pests waiting to harass women at every turn. In real life, most men are too terrified of women to even approach them. The idea that men run the world is also a lie. I mean, the movie has to lie about the company that owns Barbie just to support that idea. In our real world, the overwhelming majority of men have no power at all. In fact, the women in their lives run most of it. So I'm genuinely curious, for the people who believe in this movie, that there's this patriarchal advantage that men have, where is it? Like, seriously. Where? What's one area of life where most men have it better than most women? Is it in the job market? The US Census data would seem to say that most of the people-oriented jobs, the sit-down jobs, stuff that happens in a comfortable air-conditioned building, yeah, women seem to own most of those jobs. On the other hand, all the dirty, disgusting, dangerous, painful, physically demanding jobs, like sewage treatment, mostly men, hauling garbage, mostly men. Electrical work, very dangerous, mostly men. Roofing in 105-degree heat in the middle of the summer, I've done it. It sucks. It's also mostly men. What about the legal system? No, most legal cases between men and women are won by the woman. So not there. Is it in the education system? Nope. Women make up most of the staff, and the teaching styles tend to favor women's learning styles. And take a guess at who gets worse grades and who graduates less often, and you'd be right. What about mental health? Same problem there. Men aren't finding a lot of value in the treatments that are on offer because they're not for them. They're by women for women, and men are paying a pretty heavy price for that. Is it in the dating world? Not even close. Women are absolutely dominating men there. So where is all of this patriarchy? Is it in the church with all of that, oppressive male leadership? No, there's a 60-40 split right now. The majority of the church is women, and if anything, women are the ones running the show right now. And we'll come back to why that is later. But if women are hating it, they're not showing it because they're the ones showing up right now. So again, where is this phantom patriarchy hiding? Because I don't see men taking advantage of women anywhere in here. If anything, it looks like it might be the other way around. Now, you might still be thinking, so what? It's still a fun movie. How does any of this actually hurt anyone? Well, think of it this way. If somebody hurts you or takes something from you, do you treat that person differently? Yeah, you probably do. At the very least, you're not going to trust them as much. Keep them at a distance. But now imagine somebody lies to you and says, hey, yeah, that problem you have, that person over there caused it or stole something from you when they didn't. Now you're distrusting that person and treating them worse when they don't actually deserve it. They didn't do anything wrong. And it gets especially bad if you're a person who doesn't trust God to bring justice to those things, because you're probably going to feel like, hey, that person took something from me, so I need to take something from them because that's only fair. Somebody's got to balance out the scales and punish them for what they did because that's justice. Somebody needs to make it right, and I don't see anybody else stepping up, so it might as well be me. We end up getting resentful and spiteful and treating people worse because we think they did something hurtful and wrong to us when they didn't. This movie encourages women to kick men while they're down for no good reason. But that's not even the lie that I'm most concerned about, because that is a symptom, not the cause. The biggest lie in this movie isn't something it says directly. It's something it assumes is true. It assumes that people are only valuable if they have power. I mean, think about it. You see this everywhere. That's why movies have to show women being stronger and smarter and more capable than men, because those things give you power. And in their mind, that makes you worth more than them. That's why being sweet or feminine is bad, according to them, because it makes you weaker and less valuable. And that's why being a mother is bad, because it makes you weaker and less valuable, according to them.
You sure about that? You sure?
And that's also why the typical strong female character is so snarky and insensitive and arrogant, because that's how they see men. And they think if they take those traits for themselves, it will make them seem like they have the same power, and by extension, worth, that men do. Even if that means calling the exact same behavior toxic when a man does it, but brave and fierce when a woman does it. It's not about power, it's about who's worth more. Side note, that's also why people get so offended by 1 Timothy 2:12, because when it says that he didn't permit women to have authority over men, what they hear him saying is that he didn't allow women to be as valuable as men. And that would be offensive if it was true. I mean, it's not, but a lot of Christians do seem to be going along with this whole premise. And that might be why they like what this movie is trying to say. A movie, by the way, that's starting to make a lot more sense. Because this is why the film doesn't even bother to explain why it's so wrong for the Barbies to be under the patriarchy, even if they're happy with it. It assumes you're supposed to just know that the Kens were wrong and bad to take away the Barbies' leadership, because what they actually took away was the Barbies' worth and value. Even though the Kens didn't really take it, they kind of gave it up of their own free will. But that's a whole other thing. And it's the same thing with how it doesn't even try to justify why the unhappy feminist Barbies decided to kidnap the happy Barbies, tie them to chairs, and deprogram them out of their happiness. The film believes that it doesn't matter that the Barbies are happy, because their real problem is that they don't have power. And it just assumes that it's better for the Barbies to be miserable as long as they're in control, because at least that way they have some value. Now, doesn't it make a little more sense why feminists act the way that they do? Because of course, if you feel like you're worthless if you don't have power, yeah, you're going to fight tooth and nail to get it and protect it. Even if that directly contradicts the film's other message about finding your value and your worth in yourself instead of external things like power. The problem is, all of this is a lie. Your value does not come from the leverage that you have over other people, or even from the hungry emptiness inside yourself. It comes from the image of God that you bear and his connection to you. We also have to look at how this feminist worldview says that anytime a person is under another person's authority, they're always being taken advantage of. No exceptions. This is also why the movie never bothers to explain why it's totally wrong for the Kens to have any kind of authority in the Barbie world. But, oh no, it's totally fine for the Barbies to subjugate and use the Kens for whatever they want. The assumption is that women have been subjugated and taken advantage of by men for so long that, well, now it's just their turn to do that to men, right? Because it's fair. We're just balancing the scales and bringing justice. And that's why the movie treats Barbie like the hero for taking away everyone's happiness and re-subjugating the Kens, even though by most objective, sane measures, she's acting like the villain. And in any other movie, she would be. So for the people saying, oh, this is clearly just satire, poking fun at how ridiculous feminism is, like, no, I mean, if you listen to what the people who made the movie have to say about it, this isn't some absurd satirical takedown of feminism. This is feminism at its most destructive. Because if we play that forward, what happens if we convince everyone that they're only worth something if they have power, and that anyone who has power over them is taking advantage of them? Everything devolves into a mad battle for power, with people getting into their tribes and coming up with reasons why they deserve to have power, but other people don't. And that's exactly what we see happening today. And I get it, to a degree, I mean, these are really appealing ideas, especially to young women, because it resonates with the way that they feel about their lives, legitimately. Everybody's frustrated right now, men and women. And this gives women an easy place to point the finger. Just blame it on the patriarchy. So what if it's true or not? And so what if it's hurting people? Because it fits the way that I feel about my life, right? Now, that's definitely not to say that women are just bad and that everything is their fault. That's not what I'm saying at all. Because, we need to look at how all of this happened. How did we absorb so much of this stuff into church culture and narrative? Because if we look at the story of the fall in Genesis, we see that lies like this can only take root in the community if the men are totally complicit with it. And God holds men responsible for the well-being of the community more than anyone else. So the responsibility for this falls more onto our shoulders. Now, this starts to make more sense when we see how most guys were raised mostly by women, right? The men in their lives just weren't around. Either they're off at work or they're just off. So most boys got trained to appease women first and to never do anything that would upset or offend a woman. This is what Michael Foster talks about with the white knight phenomenon, right? You have guys who take up this romantic fantasy of being the ultimate defender and protector of women. And so anytime they see a woman in distress, they want to swoop in and save the woman by slaying the dragon that's distressing her, even if the dragon that's upsetting her is a truth that she doesn't want to hear. And then you end up with a community where there's no one left with the spine to stand up and tell the truth, because the truth tellers were run out of town by all the nice guys in shining armor. So what can we do about it? Well, ultimately, we need more people like Jesus, who did not care at all what people thought of him. We need men who are so dedicated to telling the truth and eliminating deceit that they're willing to stand up to anyone, even if it gets them in trouble. And a good place for each of us to start is to ask yourself this: am I strong enough to tell the truth? Am I emotionally and spiritually filled enough that I don't need anyone else's approval? And if not, what do I need to do to get there? How can I get emotionally and spiritually filled in other places so that I don't need him or her for that? Because truthfully, you are free to say whatever you want. The only thing holding you back is fear of what's going to happen to you. Now, if you want to work on that, you want to build up that life where you have the emotional and spiritual resources to stand up for the truth, no matter what happens to you, but you're not sure where to begin or what that even looks like, check the link below, schedule a time for a strategy session, and we'll work on it together. If any of this is helpful, be sure to hit the like button, let the algorithm know that you're here so I can keep doing these, and hit the subscribe button while you're down there. And if this video was helpful, this one will probably help you out too, so check it out. That's all I got this time. Stay weird. Peace.